Hey everybody, what's up? Jordan Tremaine with another book review for you, and today is a story written by an author that I've always wanted to read. This is my first time reading this author, and I'm glad I did because even though it's not my normal type of book, because I normally read information books rather than storybooks, this was a great story and it had a lot of information. It had a lot of color and texture, and I am excited to share it with you today. Before we get into the book review, if you like these book reviews, if you like these books, if you want to see more of this kind of stuff, then comment and tell me what you like and what you don't like, or if you thought the book was good, if you read it, if you have book recommendations, and also like and subscribe, just participate down there. I'm participating by making these videos. You should participate, not by watching them. I mean, watching is good, but click and type and do all that kind of stuff on the other side of the screen. Anyways, the book that we're talking about today is If Beale Street Could Talk by, what's his name? James Baldwin. I don't know why. I always kind of brain fart on his name. But this is an excellent book, and we're going to get into why. Alright, so James Baldwin is an American author. He spent some time living in Europe because he's African American, and at the time it wasn't super nice to be African American in the United States, so he spent some time in Europe. But he writes books that I think do, at least from this book that I've read, do a good job at painting a reality. It does tell a story, but it really sets a tone and puts you in this raw, honest space of what James Baldwin, I think, depicts as reality from his perspective. And this book, I thought, when I read a lot of other books, they seem like stories. They seem somewhat fantastic, somewhat fake. And I know Lord of the Rings is obviously fake because there's a bunch of magic and stuff. But you read books like, I don't know, Ethan Frome or Atlas Shrugged, or Watership Down or something Watership Down's obviously, they're rabbits, but like Atlas Shrugged or Ethan Frome, and they don't seem like real stories because the characters, they have elements of real people, but they seem larger than life, or they seem like they're acting in ways that real people wouldn't act. And that's my opinion. But when I was reading If Beale Street Could Talk, the characters in here, they seemed incredibly realistic and incredibly flawed and okay with that. They were just raw them. And to the point where sometimes it made you uncomfortable to read what they were talking. And I appreciated that a lot. I think the value of the book most highly for me, aside from the story, was that it seemed so realistic. It was like The Truman Show a little bit. There was a movie with Jim Carrey where they were filming his life and he didn't know that anybody was filming, and it was like a TV show about his life, but he thought it was his real life, and then later he figures out that it was all a TV show. But I'm bringing that up because it felt like the story was just talking about these people's lives, like it was filming them, and they didn't even know. They were just acting like their real selves. Because sometimes in reality TV, they know they're being filmed, so they act a little differently. The story is a love story. It's about two younger African Americans, and they're in love, I guess, and something happens that's not so good, and one of them goes to jail, and kind of the whole story revolves around this effort to try to get him out of jail, but at the same time looking at the grander scheme of how it affects their families, how it affects them, the struggles that they take, the uncertainty that they have to move through, and also the daily grind of being African American in New York at the time. And so there's all these things coming together to create the situation, and I think that Baldwin does a good job, probably a great job, of creating the situation as something that's not simple. It's a complex situation because there's your life, there's the life of the people you know that are involved, there's your work, there's the daily struggle of being alive, there's your emotions, there's new experiences, and then there's also this thing where somebody's in jail and they're trying to get him out. And jail is not a nice place. It's not like it is now, which is also not a nice place. But if you're African American and you're in jail in a time that in America, where we didn't really like African Americans, it's an even worse time. So I appreciate a lot the language in here, this stress that the characters go through and how they deal with it, the real like raw vulnerability of the story. And I think this story is a little intense. It may not be for people who read really cheesy rom-com books, because it is a little intense, but I appreciate it a lot, and I'm excited to read more Baldwin books in the future. And it's interesting because I've seen some interviews from James Baldwin, and I always thought that when I hadn't read any of his books, that he was more like a philosopher dude that wrote philosophy books. But this is a storybook, and I think, kind of like Ayn Rand, he does meter out some of philosophy through story. And you kind of got to read between the lines a little bit, but it's kind of showing the reality and providing this setting to have commentary, to have conversation. Now that we have this story, now that we have these characters, we can say there's a struggle, kind of like when Tish, the one of the main characters, had to go through this, or when Fonny had to go through that. Fonny's the guy that got sent to jail. But I think this book is excellent. It's very easy to read. There's no pictures, but I don't know. I blew through it. I wanted to read it. It's about 200 pages, and apparently even got made into a movie. I haven't seen the movie, but this book I thought was excellent. I think it's worth a read, and I don't know. I'm going to keep it short and sweet this week. But this has been Jordan Tremaine with another book review, and talking about If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin. I could get into way more, but I don't want to ruin the story. I want you to read the story because I think it's a good story, and it just has this good way of bringing life to this focus point where all these different things are coming together, which is really how life is. Life doesn't pause something so you can work on something else. Things are happening at inconvenient times, and you have to deal with it. And I think this book does a good job of portraying that. Not explaining it, just showing it to you. How life really is. And I appreciate that. So, thank you for watching, and I will see you later. Peace.